Aballon is the closest planet to the sun in the Pact Worlds. It is also gray, drab, very dusty, with lots of jagged mountains. In the sun, the heat is absolutely scorching. And when the sun sets, or in the dark places on the planet, it is freezing cold. The machines that live on this world, they don't mind the heat and they don't mind the cold. And not to mention that this is arguably the birthplace of Triune. And thousands of years before any of this, there was a first machine race, known as the First Ones locally, that got life started on the planet. They were able to harness the vast amounts of minerals, metals, and solar energy on this planet, and then they vanished. Buckle up, let's talk about Aballon. Starting off with the inhabitants of Aballon, the machines that live here now are collectively known as the Anacites. They take on a wide variety of forms. They have a vast array of shapes, and they all do different jobs, because they're all machines, all of which they are specifically designed to do. The Anacites have, in recent years, decided to individualize themselves, and they have done this by painting themselves specific colors, bright colors, or they have even done this with multiple colors but very specific patterns. And these would be your machine-designed patterns. This has had a bonus side effect for the Anacites in that biological life forms are able to tell the machines apart. The Anacites are divided theologically, and they fall into one of two camps. There are those who wait and those who become. The first group, those who wait, they upgrade themselves. They are stockpiling vast amounts of money. They do this in the belief that the first ones will return to the planet. Now, the second group of Anacites, they believe that they are to take up the mantle of the first ones. It is their job to replace them. They must go out among the stars and colonize new worlds for themselves. They build vast starships called seed ships to go out among the stars, colonize new worlds, and build more Anacites. Those who become, they also wield considerable amount of economic power and resources. So even on a machine world, things are not as utopian or unified as one might think. Over time, the Anacites have upgraded themselves from simple machines that could only do simple tasks to more complex machinery. Now their cities are vast. They are still built to machine specifications, and they are logical to machinery. They're not nearly as convenient for biologicals. You'll find that there's lots of access tunnels with no light in them because the machines, they don't need them. But that doesn't mean that they don't care about visitors to the planet who are not machines. They have set up cities with atmosphere so that biologicals can breathe. The Anacites, they understand that conducting business is a way to further increase resources and gain weapons, spaceships, promote trade, whatever it is you want to do. Though it does take some considerable effort to keep the atmosphere going, or at least keep an atmosphere in the places where biologicals will want to visit. The major factories and production hubs that are known for this planet, they certainly don't help the environmentalists. Now, the biggest settlement on Aballon is known as Striving. Striving is famous for a couple of reasons, one being it is the home of the machine courts. The machine courts is a logical coalition of robots who settle disputes between Anacites as well as other biologicals. The machine courts maintain the vast array of AI networks, and they also try to keep the peace between the planet's various robot factions. Now, the machine courts are special in the sense that they allow machines, specifically machines, to be tried in their judicial system on their planet for a crime that may have been committed on Aballon or from another world. The machine courts also do not have extradition for machine beings, androids, SROs, the Anacites. So if a mechanical life form wants to be tried in the machine courts, they have to abide by whatever ruling is passed down. One would think that this would have a bias to the machine's case. However, you would be wrong because of the logic matrix that is installed within the judicial system. It does not favor any particular life form, it just tries them fairly by using logic. Striving is also famous for being the holy seat of Triune. There is a mega church built here to honor Triune. This was also the birthplace of Epoch, the first branch of Triune, known as the Unification Cathedral. This giant church, this giant spire, sits in the middle of the city and goes right up into the sky. And underneath, there is a massive subterranean city, you could call it, devoted to Triune and the church. It's also part factory in the sense that this is where most of the drift beacon production happens from the Pact Worlds. Now, population-wise, when it comes to Aballon, the largest populous group is going to be, of course, the Anacites. Number 2 is going to be your androids. And then you start to see some of the other humanoid species, such as humans, Vesk, Ysoki. All of the non-machine races have formed very tight-knit communities across Aballon. Now, for those who are not machines, the giant cities are known as megaplexes. And these cities have spread out across the planet, much like a metallic plague. There really isn't a lot of logic to a non-machine when it comes to these designs. Now, the planet does not have any oceans on it, which is only a minor problem for biological life, seeing as you need water. So while there is no oceans, there are frozen ice that lives within craters deep inside the planet. The biggest ice production on the planet is not very creatively named, known as the ice wells, and there's more than enough water for all the biological life forms. Now, Aballon is popular with the machine races for, one, how prolific machines are here, but the reason for so many machines gathering here as well is because of organic intolerance. Basically, all the biological life forms treat machine beings as lesser and don't accept them in general society. Androids all over the place, they had a huge problem with being treated as property and not a being. This changed within the Pact Worlds, although it still happens. They do have rights, they are considered people now. While things are better for the androids, they are not perfect. Now, some interesting places to visit while you're on Aballon. Striving would of course be one of them, and we've talked about it. But the Midnight Trenches are a miner's paradise. Found just beneath the surface of the planet, adamantine is particularly plentiful here on Aballon. Adamantine is commonly very rare. Now, due to the nature of this planet, there is also some other star metals here that are very rare, but common on Aballon. Jessit and Sikatite are some of the others. Because the Midnight Trenches have been around for so long and they have been mined for a long time, most of the surface level metals have been harvested, and in the main pockets of your crater or the trenches, there's nothing left. You do still have your small mine shafts and veins that branch out into the planet, but because there are so many robot factions vying for control of these precious metals throughout the veins, while they used to work in harmony, they don't anymore. And there is common battles here, so not a lot of mining gets done anymore. One could say it's more like an active war zone. Another interesting location on Aballon is called Enduring. This particular location is a testament to the Vesk shooting first and asking questions later. What happened in 39 AG, the Veskarium invaded the Pact Worlds and they launched an attack on Aballon. It was really across all the Pact Worlds, but they did come across Aballon. And when they did, they were unaware of some of the realities of an Anacite city. Enduring was built by the first ones, and the Anacites, they treasure anything built by the first ones. It would be debatable how stable these cities are, since power surges are common in all of these cities. The Vesk did not realize this, and they thought that with this power surge, the city was getting ready to fire a weapon on their spaceships or their starships. In a preemptive strike, the Veskarium bombarded Enduring and reduced half the city to a molten liquid state. They did not account for the swift reaction from the Anacites because they really didn't like that. The Veskarium had attacked a First One city, something that was holy to them, and the Anacites acted very quickly in response, and they brought down basically the entire fleet that was bombarding the city. A year later, after the attack, Aballon joined the Pact Worlds. They signed the Pact Treaty. This attack is largely thought to be responsible for that. All of the ships, they crashed, and this site or this city became a wasteland. The wreckage burns even hundreds of years later after the fact. The Machine Court closed off this city or this area from exploration from anyone for a very long time. It's only just recently that they've allowed adventuring parties to go in, but the caveat to that is no one is allowed to explore Enduring unless there is a Veskarium Empire representative present. There is also a massive solar-powered floating factory that is in the sky of Aballon. The Horse Eye Orbital Plate is a manufacturer of spaceships, spaceship components. It is miles wide, and on the top, which is always facing the sun, there is a vast array of solar panels to harness the solar energy. And on the underside, that is where the machines do all of their building and the factory stuff. Now, this factory was built as a joint venture between Lost Galorion and Aballon, the citizens of Aballon. Now, the shareholders who have most of the rights to this factory, they are mostly humans with some dwarves and halflings in the mix as well. Companies, corporations, religious organizations, they vie for rental rights on this platform to build their starships or fulfill orders. But shareholders ultimately have the final say on what's allowed to be built or what contracts they can fulfill. While they rarely use these services for themselves, the shareholders definitely court those who are interested, and you can absolutely guarantee that these shareholders are schmoozed and courted by corporations for rental rights or production rights. Now, I mentioned that Aballon was home to the Church of Triune and the AI known as Epoch. If you'd like to learn more about who Triune was, the AIs that went into its creation, click on the video on your screen now. Thank you to all of my patrons who continue to support me in the channel, and thank you to everyone who's done these super chats. The support is greatly appreciated. My name's Nathaniel. Thanks for stopping by, everyone.